Welcome to the Cambridge Tech Podcast, talking all things technology from the heart of the UK's tech capital. Here are your hosts, Faye Holland and James Parton.
I'm Faye.
And I'm James. So first off, a tip of the hat to any of our hardcore listeners that are actually listening to this as it goes out on New Year's Eve. If you're playing this back later, you're still welcome, of course.
So this episode, we're talking to University of Cambridge alum Sam Sully from Planetary Processing, which is a company who are developing a platform for indie gaming studios.
Sam, thanks so much for taking the time to come onto the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Why don't we begin with getting to know you a little bit better? Let's go right back to the beginnings. And what first got you into technology and computers?
It's safe to say that a lot of the blame is easily attributed to Minecraft, which I started playing at about age 12. And after, spending a lot of time, probably to my parents' dismay, playing Minecraft with my friends, I started getting into modding the game. And I ended up spending quite a decent amount of my teens modding and publishing mods and running an online server, which I had modified the game quite substantially into an MMORPG. And that sort of set me off on a trajectory of game adjacent coding. And then sort of from there on, went and did computer science GCSE and A-level, and then at Cambridge, and everything went wrong from there. No.
I think what was interesting when we were chatting before we started the recording was you were going to then go on and study a master's, but this was during COVID, right? And you really didn't want to be studying remotely.
Yeah, so I decided sort of very late in the process in that I was actually signed up to do the master's program. I had the grades and I was, on the list. And I decided not to at the last minute because everything was locking down. I didn't really fancy doing a year of COVID university. And also I felt like I wanted to go and do something non-academic for some time, go into the big scary real world and see what happens. And I did that. And I spent a year living in a one-bed flat in Chalk Farm under lockdown, working remotely for a startup, which was not necessarily the most fun period of my life. I certainly learned a lot in that startup. It was a bit of a very typically chaotic startup where I learned a lot about how not to build technology and how not to manage and stuff like that. And that was a very formative time for me in terms of like a bit of a trial by fire in how the working world actually works. When it came to the first job, there was a culture that was very akin to a financial trading floor. And I think that's because a lot of the senior people in the company had come from that sort of area. And that's the world that they knew, the world that they'd worked in for many years. And they applied the ways of working from that to engineers and technology. And that doesn't really work. And I think it resulted in what was not really a very fun working environment, and also one that ultimately was very unproductive for everyone involved. So I learned very much that you have to respect the process when it comes to building technology. But also, on the other hand, one of the things that I saw that was quite clear to me was that I seemed to find myself a lot of the time acting as an interpreter between the engineers and the non-engineers. And I was taken aback, frankly, by how big the trench is between technical and non-technical people and how difficult it is for people to seemingly bridge that gap, which is something that I find quite doable. I quite like doing. I quite like acting as a bit of a translator, interpreter, and I was surprised at the gap and how wide it was, because it's always, there are memes about it and whatnot on the internet and stuff like, when the product manager says this and it's all that sort of stuff and sorts of memes like that go around on Reddit and whatnot. And I was sort of surprised how real that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think let's come on to that as well when we talk about your company now. So if we can, you went back to Cambridge, didn't you, with your idea and got this Pathfinder grant. So tell us a little bit more about your idea and what you wanted to do.
So for my final year project, just before lockdowns happened at Cambridge, I was building a platform for decentralized simulation of three-dimensional worlds. And I had wanted to take that into a sort of, commercial market product. And having worked in a couple of startups for a few years, got a lot of experience about the working world, made some good connections, and sort of found my feet in terms of my personal life, in terms of I got myself a nice home that I live in Highgate and that sort of stuff. I was ready to do something a bit more challenging, a bit more interesting than working in a bunch of startups in London. I thought, no, let's do something more exciting. And I looked at this project that I'd worked on, that I'd wanted to bring to market, and thought that it definitely fills a niche. So the idea is basically building multiplayer games is very, very difficult, especially for an increasingly large portion of the game developer market, which is the independent studios. They make up about 40% of the industry, and they are often less able to build complicated technical products and take on complicated technical projects. So by providing the technology I built at university as a service with a very low barrier to entry, very easy self-service, I hope to enable these studios to break into the market of multiplayer gaming where previously they've been quite significantly underrepresented. And other companies had tried to do similar things, but I felt had always missed the mark. Missed the mark specifically by being too complicated to get started with, is what I mean. Not just complicated, but like the barrier to entry was too high. So I focused on simplicity and rapid prototyping being very possible with our product. And that's where we are today. We've got a product, it's out there, people are using it. So after that £20,000 from Cambridge Enterprise, we then raised a full funding round on the back of some market research that first money had paid for. And we've been working on the product and bringing it to market since then.
So I think the exciting thing, Sam, here is, like you said, you're really opening up a whole opportunity for indie developers to really compete with those AAA studios that, invest hundreds of millions of dollars in building their kind of games, but take years doing them as well, right? So can we just spend a little time taking a look at that kind of target customer, give people a sense of how many indie developers are out there, the size of the kind of games industry, and what percentage that they kind of make up?
I know, for example, off the top of my head, that 40% of the industry is now considered to be not the major players, so not the Sonys and the big fellas. So that the characteristic of the people that we're going after at the moment is small to medium, so from the hobbyists right the way down at the bottom to the sort of medium-sized studios who've maybe got 50 employees who want to build something multiplayer, see it as very high risk because of the high upfront cost, and so maybe they choose to use us instead to de-risk it and bring their product to market. Often the people that we're talking to are sort of somewhere in the middle there, smaller than 50 and more like 10 people, and are interested in bringing a grand vision of a multiplayer game, often large scale, large open world, wanting to bring that to life, but lacking necessarily the resources to do so and the capital. And so we hope to fill that gap.
From what you've seen, because I know you ran a beta early in the year, but from what you're seeing with early users, how much time, how much money do they kind of save compared to developing the games in a more traditional way?
So we have estimated that by using us, you're saving anything from 20 to 40% of your development costs for a multiplayer game, depending on the size and scale of the game. And in terms of time, to put that into perspective, I ran a talk at a conference a couple of days ago where I did, it was titled Multiplayer Development Speedrun, where I built a tag game in 30 minutes using Planetary Processing. That's a multiplayer tag game that was just done in 30 minutes. Obviously, it looked terrible because I did it in Unity, and it was spheres moving around that were red or blue tagging each other or something. But a multiplayer game that could scale to hundreds and thousands of players in 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Time savings are huge, and we've got like guides online and stuff that walk you through getting started quickly on our YouTube and stuff, and also on our just written in our docs that help people to realize the potential of multiplayer games and realize that the de-risking is done, and you can just build something in the way that you're used to. So I sound so salesy right now.
No, I mean, it's important that we kind of fully understand the proposition. And I guess my next question before I hand back to Faye is also a kind of business question, but what's the business model behind the product? How does the developer pay for it? Is it a licensing model? Is it a kind of pay-per-play kind of model? How do you see that working?
So we charge per player minute because we have an extremely granular pricing system that's based on the lowest level of usage. So because we have a very standardized system in that the world is your game world is divided into chunks, and those are simulated separately on our servers, we can actually leverage the fact that games have activity, their busyness over time varies significantly. So whilst your game may not be very busy in the middle of the night in the region where you're most popular, another game in a different region might be really busy. And so we can use the same servers that we've been using for you before for those games. And that means that we're very efficient and we can afford to charge a lot less than some of our competitors by leveraging that multi-tenant gain. So our pricing is very competitive. It's actually also free to use with a bunch of limits for new developers. And that like limits you to 10 players, and it limits you to various other things, turns off some of the features, but still, it's pretty cool. You can build a prototype game for free, and up to 10 players, it's just free. And then you have to pay a small fee, £5 a month, to access the premium features, and then you get charged on top of that the per minute billing, which is something like a fraction of a pound per player minute. So it works out cheaper than the Minecraft server that I used to pay for.
And just one last clarification question there. Just when you were talking about multi-tenancy of the customers, does that mean that you're building your own infrastructure, or are you building on top of like a hyperscaler?
We have servers they're just running sort of regular Linux that are sort of, we've got them in London, Frankfurt, and I think we're opening a couple in the US soon because we've got some people in the US using it. And these just operate either bare metal or as high performance virtual machines. We don't necessarily like own physical hardware or anything, but we're very much at the lower level of that. We're not running on like cloud native or anything.
So Sam, I just want to talk to you a little bit more about the market, please. So it seems to me it's a very competitive space, but you've gone through all the beta work, you've got the fully released product. Who are you targeting? Is it the UK? Are you going for the US market?
So we've had a lot of luck with Germany, and that checks out with our market research because Germany is the largest gaming industry in Europe, and in particular Berlin styles itself online as the games capital. We've been finding a lot of good connections and good studios and events in Berlin. On top of that, we have been looking to the States, of course, as it's an important and large market. And of course, we attend GDC in San Francisco every year, which is the one time per year that I get on a flight, as I'm not usually a particular keen flyer. I take the train to Berlin. But yes, I do have to fly to San Francisco. It's a really fun conference. And San Francisco is a really interesting city. I mean, one of our earliest clients, in fact, was based in the Bay Area, although they actually have now a branch in the UK and in Sweden, somewhere in northern Sweden. There's like a village in Sweden where people set up like a games developer village. And it's a very strange, unique entity. But I think they said they either have or intend to have a branch there.
It kind of feels like the timing is almost perfect for you guys because, the macro trends in gaming right now is, a lot of consolidation of studios, unfortunately, like a lot of layoffs as well. So, someone coming to market with a proposition which reduces costs and speeds time to market would seem to be, you'd think would be really well received. Is that what you're kind of finding in conversations with potential customers?
So we're certainly finding that the market has been tough recently for game developers and that ways of cutting costs are popular. I also think that we're quite good because there was a bit of a chaotic metaverse hype cycle. And I think we missed that. And I'm very glad, because I fear that we could have got caught up in it. Whilst I like to think that I am scrupulous enough to avoid that sort of thing, it's hard to know. And I do think when we speak to studios, especially those that are building multiplayer or interested in building multiplayer things, the idea of being able to develop their game with no upfront costs to hosting infrastructure and netcode and such is very attractive to them, especially in the current market.
Sam, you're making great progress here. You've got your product in the market. You're visiting these different areas that have got buoyancy in the gaming sector. So what are your plans for 2025? Are you going to be looking at expansion? Are you looking to raise more funding?
So both. We're looking to raise funds this year, and this will be to sort of fund our next stage of growth and expansion. Now that we've sort of validated that the product, the technology works, people who use it like it, and we're sort of refining maybe our positioning and getting more and more people on board and interested, now's the time for us to really expand. So we're looking to raise funds in the spring, sort of late spring, before the quiet period of the summer. So if anyone's interested, then get in touch. But that's a big thing for us at the moment. And then I think it's going to be about really refining and expanding our offering to cover more game engines, to add lots of the most important features that people have requested. We've got a detailed roadmap on our website covering all of our technical goals for this year and a little bit into next year as well, actually. And so far, we've kept mostly to the roadmap as we've had it planned. A couple of deviations here and there where something important's come up that people have gone, why didn't you have this? Or you should maybe have this. And then we go, yeah, we should add that, and add it really quickly, but mostly keeping to the roadmap.
Well, that's awesome. And, obviously we'll keep a close eye on your growth, and please drop us a line when you've got some new news to share on the fundraising.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, it was our pleasure. Thanks, Sam.
Cheers.
Today's show was produced by Carl Homer of Cambridge TV and supported by our media partner, Business Weekly. The Cambridge Tech Podcast is available on all major podcast platforms and on cambridgetechpodcast.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please give it a 5-star review. It'll really help others discover the show.
If you are a startup looking to grow in Cambridge, the Bradfield Centre offers a range of flexible membership packages which put you in control of your office and home working mix. There's a vibrant, collaborative atmosphere, on-site cafe, plenty of green outside space, and regular member social events. For more information, visit bradfieldcentre.com or call 01223 919 600.